Okay, so this is our final episode with the random selection.
All right, let's do
What
it.
do we have, Janelle?
We have episode, what role does inventory play?
Okay. I'm guessing what role does inventory play in the success of your business? Just going to add the next tail on that. A pick your own ending situation. All right, inventory. How important is it? Okay, what consists of inventory?
For the sake of this conversation, we will be talking about the most common things, which are consumables.
What does a consumable mean?
Anything with a price attached that we're selling, like neurotoxins, fillers, retail products.
Okay.
Laser tips.
Laser tips.
Tips. Anything, but I'm not talking about, for the sake of this, gauze.
Right. Yeah, no.
Tissue.
No. Okay. So basically it's stuff that you use in a service or is for home care.
Thank you for simplifying that.
You're welcome. Okay. So inventory, what role does it play in your business? I have a take on it, but let's start where you want to start. I want to go where you want to go, and then we'll go from there.
What role does it play? This is massive. This is probably like top 3 most important things that you should be looking out for and monitoring and measuring on a daily, if not weekly, but for sure monthly,
if not daily,
but for sure monthly basis.
Okay. So best practices daily.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it so important?
Because this is the cost of goods. This is the cost of what is happening in your practice and what you're paying to provide services. And if those services are walking out the door, if we're being careless with them, if we're not counting them and we don't really know what we have on hand, it's going to impact our bottom line in a negative way.
Yeah. So you didn't pick up on, well, I guess you did at the end, my subtle EBITDA sneeze. So ultimately, your inventory is going to impact your bottom line.
AKA profit.
And so I think about this multiple ways. I know you talked about tracking. I kind of want to take a slightly different angle, and then maybe we can come back to tracking if you're okay with that. I want to talk a little bit about how much to buy. And like when and why to buy, because I think that's a big one. I think that as we run our practices, we know what products we're going to need in order to, as far as injectables go, to fulfill a certain service or to accomplish a certain service. We have an idea of the retail that we want to have cleansers, sunscreens, whatever it is that you decide makes up the collection of key products. So we know that what that is that we want on our shelves, but how much do you keep on your shelf? Because I also think that understocking, there's a danger. Overstocking, there's a danger. There's danger in stocking. That's a totally different episode, which is not this episode. That's like real crime or something. And then the idea of buying because of vendor relationships is a very big danger. And we talked a little bit about that in another episode of, like, just because they buy you crumble does not mean that you need to carry their product. So for me, that's a big one. As much as it is tracking it, monitoring it, what you bring on and how you make sure that it's moving is important. Also, when is it time to actually, do you promote it? How do you advertise it? How do you ensure it moves? How do you avoid artificial spikes in your inventory as far as it's exciting and new now, but how does it stay exciting and new? So having that angle, what is your take on it?
Oh my God, there was like a million things.
I know there were, but it's kind of around the same stuff.
What I would say is a healthy range for medical is 2 weeks on hand of inventory.
Medical, you mean like injectables and stuff?
Yeah.
And like what you said, laser tips?
Yeah. So if you are running a tight inventory system and you know your run rates and you have your par levels dialed in.
What's a run rate?
How often you're going through products, whether you look at that on a like trailing month basis, trailing 2 months, trailing 3 months.
So run rate is
it'll give you an idea of how much on average you're going through with a said product.
Okay.
Now, to your point, there are going to be times when there's spikes. Let's say you do a training on Sculptra. Now, all of a sudden, the run rate is going to change because you have a spike in Sculptra. What I will say about all of this, usually the turnaround times for these products is pretty quick.
Yeah.
So to be sitting on a ton of inventory when it comes to injectables scares me a lot.
Yeah.
because we do see such dips, ebbs and flows, not only with seasonality, but just provider preferences change. So
I think that is a big one. Let's pause there
Okay.
for a second, because when we talk about provider preference, I would say not always. So please don't everyone think that this is the rule, or you might have an exception out there. What I have seen predominantly happen is vendor comes in, they do a training, they get the staff all amped, and now all of a sudden, all of the staff wants to use that product. Or a vendor comes in and they show them a new product. And we'll say, for the sake of this conversation, when we say product, we're talking about, let's say, an injectable product. And now all of a sudden, that's the product everyone wants to use. And they're all saying, we need this product. We have to get this product in. I'm not saying that there are not variances between products. I'm not saying the consistency, that the molecular structure at a level that most of us don't understand is not different and may not react differently in certain areas. But I am saying that they were getting beautiful results prior to that product. So how do you address those potential artificial spikes in inventory? So let's say you've got boxes of one product that has worked beautifully, but now they're super amped on this other product. Do you bring in that other product while your shelf is stocked with this other product that works well up into 2 hours ago?
So you're talking about bringing in a new SKU? Oh. Gosh, I think there's so many other things involved to think about when bringing on a completely new injectable.
Okay.
I don't know that I want to go down that rabbit hole on this inventory
I will go down
call.
this rabbit hole very quickly. I won't go down a rabbit hole. We'll go down a gopher hole, which arguably could be deeper. I don't know. But what I will say is, in my experience, I'm not saying no to it, but what I am saying is we have all of this product on the shelf. And why don't we get through that? And if we can move through that product, then we'll bring some of that onto trial. And then we'll bring that into the mix, because I don't want to limit the paint and the palette for these artists. But if you've been painting beautiful masterpieces, let's continue to use that paint before we get to the next one. And I've even heard estheticians use that before with products, where they're like, once you get through the cleanser you're using, let's move you to this one. I think you might have better results with it. So from an inventory perspective, I would just caution people to not necessarily follow the immediate trend in the spark. And I'm not saying it's a no. I'm saying what could inevitably happen is you'll end up sitting on a ton of potential revenue, because remember, it's money that you've already spent on that inventory that is now just sitting there. And these products have expiration dates. So I would just caution against bringing on the new shiny SKU and having that turn in, that money evaporate.
And I think you bring out a really good point that sometimes we forget. And I think when I was managing, wasn't always thinking of it like this. And that if I placed an order for $100,000 and I've only sold $50,000 of it, where's the other $50,000?
Right.
Exactly where you think it is.
Yeah.
You have not collected on it, and it can be a potential loss if you're not monitoring your inventory well and it expires.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing too. So talking about best practices when it comes to expiring product this was a big one for me. And I have managed practices where we, unfortunately, were not rotating product. And so even though, to your point, you're going through it pretty quickly, it was like at the grocery store when they have the milk and you're grabbing the first one on the shelf and it's the newest milk, but in the back is the milk that's going to expire in 2 weeks. They're not rotating it. And so they're going to end up with a lot of expired product. And the same thing is true with neurotoxins, sometimes sunscreens, where when you do your counts or when you get a new inventory, make sure that you're rotating. So that way the oldest product is coming to the front. Because again, these are all things that are going to hit your bottom line, that you don't end up using that. It expires. You can no longer sell that. You cannot use that in a patient's face.
Or you freak out last minute. It's about to expire in 2 weeks. And then you have to do all these weird flash sales. And then you're trying to get rid of the stuff. And it's avoidable.
Like the avocados, extra ripe. All that means is they're about to be mush.
I think the bottom line is, no pun intended, all of this is controllable.
Yes. Well, and that's the idea, right? Inventory is a controllable cost. So that's a couple of those different things as far as we talked about how much your run rate. Run rate also applies to retail. So if you bring retail onto the shelves, how much are you running through? We talked about not having enough. So that's the other piece too, which is I do think there's a little more leeway with injectables. Please don't kill me, all of the vendors out there, but I do think some of these products are interchangeable. So I don't think it's as detrimental. I think on your retail shelves, when you run out of retail and someone comes in, and I've seen this and I understand the reasons why it happens, and sometimes it's totally out of your control, but if you can help it, you come in and someone goes, oh, I want to repurchase my TNSA Plus, which is like over a $300 product. Love it. Use it every day. And you don't have it. You lost that sale.
Yeah.
You did. They're not, I mean, the chances that they're going to wait for it, some people do. It's not that likely. We are like
but it also
instant gratification type of people. And I don't want to wait. I'm going to go find it.
Or what happens is you just end up burning yourself with other things. Okay, we'll call you when it comes in, or now I'm shipping it to someone, or there's just all these extra layers of things to do and remember. It just it affects the patient experience negatively.
And sometimes it's out of your control, but what I would say pay attention to is if the vendor is about to do a promotion. So let's just say with neurotoxins, you're going to do a Botox day. Well, you might want to think about increasing your par level. Par level meaning that the level that you try not to fall below. So you might want to increase your par level. Retail, there might be a GWP coming out where you're going to do a push or an email or staff pick. If that's the case, you might want to increase your par level. So set yourself up for success, because sitting on a lot of product is bad. Not having enough is also bad. Again, understand that there are things out of your control with that. And then the other piece is I want to talk about that I recall doing inventory counts when the numbers just don't match up. What causes that?
Depends what.
She's like,
depends what product. So you should never.
What do we want to focus on? Let's focus on one.
So let me just say this. Filler should always match. There's no world where you should have filler that's off. Right? It always, even if you're giving it away, it always needs to be checked out, and it all has to be accounted for. So that to me should never be like.
I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but giving it away, there are different reasons why you would give it away. But anyways,
it should still be checked in and out of the system, regardless if it's gratis.
It should still be tracked.
Yep. I think the most common one where we see discrepancies is going to be neurotoxin. And I will say there is a level of discrepancy that's acceptable due to how you're drawing it up.
I've heard a variety of like what is, so it's called shrinkage, and it is in reference to actual like inventory losses, that there is a level that is acceptable. So what have you found is the standard for an acceptable loss for neurotoxin?
Less than 3%.
Yeah.
2 to 3%.
I was going to say 2.5.
And there's reasons for that. But I think, if you have a strong tracking system, you should not be losing more than that. And there's so many different ways in why that would happen. We're careless. We're drawing up way too fast. Things are moving too fast. Drips out.
You miss out on the patient. There's a little bit at the bottom of the vial that gets tossed away because you can't get it without dulling your needle. And I think when you actually add that all up, it does make a big difference. So knowing that you're already, the acceptable is 2.5%, and you look at that as a percentage of your revenue. And you're like, that's already quite a bit. So I think you said something like having those controlled safety nets in there is really important. So I have met practices, and it's not super uncommon, that do not track their inventory. Obviously, there isn't anyone at Alpha that doesn't, because we know that best practice is to track your inventory and the big impact that it has. But it was not uncommon, like going into a practice and them being like, well, I know that I accepted this many in, but we have no way of pulling it out of, and providers knew that too. And it wasn't intentional theft.
Right.
But there was like, it's not being tracked, and I want to hook you up with a few extra units. Well, hook up with a few extra units really amounts to a lot that really can potentially hurt the business. And so having those safety nets in place are really important. What are some of the safety nets that you've used to monitor your inventory levels to ensure that either product is not mismanaged, walking away, or just not being accounted for?
I'm going to tell you the most extreme way, and then you can find levels that feel more appropriate for your practice, but I will share the extreme.
Okay.
The extreme is only a manager or assistant manager is checking in the product and locking it up after it's been checked in.
Mm-hmm.
Then they're assigning product daily to providers, like signing out on it. So I'm giving you, Rebekah, 10 boxes of this and 600 units of this. We both sign out on it.
This is extreme.
Yeah.
Okay.
I, as a provider, am checking in for the day, back in what I did not use with all of my communication slips, so that I can so that I, as a manager, am verifying against what you said you did, versus what you're turning back in.
Yeah.
If there's a discrepancy on these tickets after we check them, I meet with the provider and we sit down and try and figure out where the discrepancy lies.
Okay.
That's best practice. Oh, and sorry, counting daily, just even if it's just like a quick neurotoxin filler count. I say quick, let's be honest, it's not that quick.
Yeah.
But checking every single night where you're at.
Yeah.
And then in the morning, some people even do another, like a quick check as far as like night and day, just with neurotoxin and filler. That's really strong practice.
So you have some practices I've noticed, like on Slack, you give shout outs to people that have like insanely good, accuracy, like accurate inventory. Are they using this model?
There's a huge difference in the people with like the 95 percentile accuracy.
Yeah.
Elise, I'm giving you a shout out on this because
you are timeless beauty.
Yeah, you are very intense about your inventory, but I think it's great because we've all seen what happens when it just the loss and how quickly it hits your bottom line and it's just gone.
The silent killer to your business.
And yeah, so that is best practice there as far as like a manager checks it in, puts it away, locks it up.
Yeah.
And then like even for staff treatments, it has to be approved by management and grabbed and signed out by management and then checked out by management.
I will say that and you mentioned communication slips. So communication slips, obviously they're writing down how many units that they're using. I mean, sometimes there's a miscount. I think that I've worked with some of the most brilliant injectors that suck at math. It is the most hilarious thing I've ever seen. And the injectors who are listening to this that we've worked together, you know that it's you. I don't have to say your names. But there can be that error too. But I think all of this in general, this idea behind doing these checks, it's not about mistrusting your staff. It's not about that you have people. So if you're like, I have a great staff, I trust them, I don't need these in place. It's not that. It's what I just talked about. It's potential human error. I've even seen where they've checked out and it's, they're saying that it's one product for filler. And then you look, because we used to have them put the sticker on the communication slip and the sticker was different than what they had. And we're like, well, what did you use? And they didn't realize that they had used a different product, or they did, but they wrote it down incorrectly. And so those were some of those discrepancies that happened. So again, we're not saying that it's that you don't trust your providers or you don't trust your front desk staff. It's that we're all human and we make these mistakes. And so being able to have that in place is necessary. And the same with your retail.
I do want to share one more thing about best practice, and that is double checking the communication slips at the end of the night as well. Oh, yeah,
for sure.
So that's another thing. So they're all getting turned in, and then they're being checked by the front desk throughout the day or at the end of the night, and then getting put on the manager's desk, and the manager is double checking. This seems like a lot of work, but it's worth it when you've seen what potential.
And you get in a rhythm. You get in a flow. It might feel like a lot at first, so give grace, but there is a rhythm to this that it becomes second nature.
But what happens when you don't, and I will say this from experience, your providers start to find errors and then they don't trust you because it potentially impacts their pay.
If they're losing revenue? I mean, if they're losing inventory?
If the front desk is human error forgetting to ring up stuff or...
Oh, the
communication slip check is a thing to build trust as well within your teams.
Let's go before that, which is some people might not even know what we're talking about when we say communication slip. So a communication slip is just a small piece of paper on there where your provider can write how many units they did, which fillers they used, how many. So that way there's no question. It helps protect patient privacy. It helps, as we've talked about, your inventory, and it helps ensure accuracy of tickets. So I would suggest if this is not something that you're doing, that you do, it would be really helpful. And it's a very simple step for those 3 reasons. I think it's definitely well worth it. And there are different ways that you can use them too for making sure that you are reconciling, different rebates and points and things like that you have to use. So I do love that. retail, and then I feel like we can talk forever on this, but we might put people to sleep. So we'll try to land the plane soon. And I won't talk long on this, but going back to retail counts as well. You might not need daily counts for retail, but I would say that retail is a really valuable resource that you have. So making sure that you're counting it, maybe not with the same rigor that you do with your injectables or your laser tips or whatever that is, but I would definitely say weekly. If you have a lot of variety of SKUs, we used to rotate it. So
we'd split it up like half, this day and then the other half this day. But like at least every week you were getting all of your retail counted.
I would also be really cautious for those of you. I personally love an open display. I'm not a huge fan of locked up product. I understand if you've experienced theft, why people might do that. I do like open shelving. However, you do run the risk of theft. And so I would say just be cautious about where you're placing your most expensive items. And that can also help you. But at the end of the day, inventory, super important. We could have talked through so much on retail and how that helps your top line, and just making sure that you have the right amount of product on your shelves. Not too much, not too little. You have a proper tracking method in place. Take your inventory seriously. It's going to help your top line and it's going to help your bottom line.